Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. I'm Ginny Robertson, one of the hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, and I'm also the founder of the On Purpose Woman magazine and the founder of the On Purpose Woman global community. My guest today is Nourishment thought leader, Dr. Carla Johnston, and we'll be talking about the wise woman path to living a life of nourishment. Thanks for being with me today, Carla. I do love that word nourishment. I'm excited to talk with you about it.
Thanks, Ginny. I'm really excited to be here.
And I also have to say, I love nourishment thought leader. You're the only one of those I know. So
well, that's good.
Kudos on labeling yourself that way. I really like it. But before we dive into this discussion, I want to tell our viewers why you're qualified to talk about nourishment. So in addition to being a nourishment life, a nourishment, what was the word I used? Nourishment thought leader, yes. In addition to being a nourishment thought leader, Dr. Carla Johnston is a nutrition practitioner, coach, and author advocating for wise women to incorporate health positive behaviors into more balanced lifestyles. She recently became a podcaster and her show is called Uniquely Nourishing. Dr. Johnston holds a doctorate in clinical nutrition from Maryland University of Integrative Health, an MA in applied sociology from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and an MS in herbal medicine from Maryland University of Integrative Health. She is also a licensed and board certified nutritionist in Maryland. Those are pretty impressive credentials, Carla. I really applaud you for that. So you are well qualified to talk about nourishment, probably not just from education, but life experience as well, I would imagine. And we're going to delve into that a bit today.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
So what brought you to the world of integrative health? Let's start there.
So I've spent the first part of my career, over 25 years, I spent in hospitals. And so I worked with intensive care staff and the operating room. And it was an amazing experience of how we take care of people that are really sick and the dedicated people that are doing that. And after a while and through a family, my mother was pretty ill with chronic illnesses. And I began to wonder what it looked like on the other side, with traditional medicine origins. And I found the program of herbal medicine and I made the choice, am I going to continue on this path or am I going to shift it? So at midlife, I did that. I decided that I love learning, the possibilities and the knowledge that you bring with you to be able to make your own decisions. And that started me on the journey of looking at traditional medicine through herbal practices and different cultures. And then also how nutrition and herbs work together and how all of those work together to support our health. So it's amazing learning and continues to be.
I love that. And I always like to ask my guests this question if they've made like a major switch. Did you get much pushback from friends, family members? Did people think you'd kind of gone off the deep end? What are you doing? You had this cushy thing over here and now you're going to turn it all upside down. What happened there?
Yeah. So when I made the decision and I looked at it, it's interesting because, in my mind, I had done the due diligence and I was really excited about it. And I thought the birds would sing and everyone would go, wow, this is really great. And, it would be wonderful. And I did have people really question, at this point in your life, why would you make that switch? And I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. In my mind, though, I really wanted to look at both. Because I've been in hospital sales and that's evidence-based medicine, I wanted to look at the traditional pieces and the wisdom that traditions bring us that we pull into what clinical realm it is now. So the evidence supports that. So in my mind's eye, that made complete sense. And I did get some pushback and still some people go, I don't understand what you're doing. And what I did take a step back. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not sure. What it did do, though, for me personally, is it gave me clarity, with that, what were those objections, my objections, and really what was my plan and what was I called to do? And then I just listened to my intuition and I went for it.
Yeah, because if you're not strong enough to get through those naysayers, then my goodness, how are you going to keep going to do the real work, right?
Yes.
And I asked that question because I think it's an important question for women to hear who might find themselves in that position. I mean, I was 40 when I made a major shift. Mm-hmm. I wasn't quite midlife, I guess, but most people thought I had lost my mind because most people were in my circle of the corporate world that I had been,
Mhm.
that I was leaving. And so, you leave benefits and this corner office and all of this. And I remember doubting myself quite a bit in the early days, but you're right. Once you get really clear on it, it's not smooth sailing from that point on, but it certainly does keep us more on track with ourselves. And like you said, start to trust yourself more.
Yes. And I will say that, there were people that left my life during that process, people that could reconcile with it. And those that filled that space were really encouraging. I've always said I've had, mentors and friends and leaders where you have those people that uplift you, that pull you up. And then you also have those that'll walk beside you and go, you know what, I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. I'm not going to give you any advice. I'm just going to walk alongside. And if you need to talk, you need to talk. And I had way more people fill those slots. And so I'm extremely grateful for that.
Yes. Yes. Well, as I said in the beginning, I love the word nourishment. And so I wanted to say a few words about nourishment because for me, when I hear that word, I don't think it's used enough. When I hear it, I think it sounds kind of yummy and like somebody is folding me up in a warm, soft blanket. It just feels, and by nourishing myself, that might be what I'm doing is wrapping myself up in something. But I looked up the official definition, and the official definition is all about food. And I know that you say that when we hear the word nutrition, we may think of what is on the plate. And when we hear the word nourishment, we can think about what is on life's plate. And I think that's an amazing, beautiful distinction. So please talk about how your nourishment conversation goes beyond food choices, which I know are important, but it's way more than that.
It is, and thank you. And I love how you described it, and I may use that. I just love that. And this has been an evolution. So, from herbs and food and nutrition, I began to see in working with people one-on-one and also in my workshops, I began to see that the conversation was much bigger. So, for example, if someone is experiencing illness or challenges to their health or just not feeling well, we would talk about food. We would talk about those inputs because they're incredibly important. Our digestive system is, what I consider an orchestra leader in our entire body, right? Our immune system is based out of that. Serotonin is made in the gut, which we know goes directly to the brain. So there's brain health, gut health, cardiovascular health, all of that. And what I began to realize is that when people were struggling or unclear or unsure of how that fit for them, the conversations that we had also focused on how are you moving? And we know that if I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to be moving well. And if I'm not doing those, I'm probably not sleeping well. I may not feel as connected to my friends, so my social support might be lacking. There may be a genetic component to what I have. I may have, a family history of this illness that I have, and I may be on medication. So there were so many other inputs. And when we started talking in that regard, I started to see these amazing shifts. And so, and for me, what I, with the story that we just told when we started, I love learning. That's part of my nourishment. If I'm not learning, there's something that I'm not doing that's not feeding my soul. And when I had conversations with other women and also some men in my practice as well, when we had these conversations and we'd talk about, what is the feeling behind that, or who's supporting you in that, or when did that happen? There was these aha moments like, oh, I see. So beyond the stress conversation, which is hugely important, some of it could have been, in one case, it was grief that was a driver. And so when this person went and saw a grief counselor, which was a referral, a lot of the other things started to make sense. So that's when I said, you know what? It is about nutrition. It's a huge component into what I do. It's where my training is for sure. And yet the conversations for me in my workshops and in one-on-ones always extends out because in my view, there's always a bigger conversation.
Yes. So you are really giving the whole person an opportunity to show up. You're not looking at symptoms.
Yes.
Like, oh, your neck hurts, or oh, your stomach's been bothering you. I mean, you'll look at those,
Yeah.
but you're not diagnosing at this point. You're looking at the whole piece, kind of like, I guess, functional medicine. But they're doing it for more of an integrative, I guess, physical, mental, but also very medical model. But I was thrilled when I started learning about functional medicine because they are at least looking at the whole person now, not just that one, spot on their lung or something. And so it sounds like what you bring to your clients, Carla, more than anything is you ask the right questions and you listen for their answers.
Thank you. Yeah. So I really make an effort to listen more than I speak. And sometimes when I'm listening in my own ear is I'm listening for what isn't being said just as much as what is being said. And to your point with functional medicine, so as a clinical nutritionist, we don't diagnose and treat. We have the medical doctors that do that. And I always love when people have many people on their team. So it's not an either or conversation. And so as another example, I have a gastroenterologist doctor who has some really, really challenging cases that will refer to me because he's like, I'm not sure what you're doing, but people are really starting to feel better and I'm seeing, things shift.
Wow,
and
that's fabulous.
Yeah. And when I explained a little bit about what I was doing, we both chuckled because there was no interest in learning what I was doing, how I was doing it. The results were, these are busy people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really started to hone in on, and why my podcast is called Uniquely Nourishing, because there isn't two conversations that are the same, even with the same person, because things change, our views change, our moods change, our energy level changes, what's on our mind changes, and health and wellness, those things shift over time as well. And so that's what makes it challenging and really beautiful at the same time.
It's a great service, I think, that you're bringing. I love that the doctor, don't tell me what you're doing, it's working. So just help me with these people. And what a gift to them as well that he's open to that.
Yes.
Well, when we're looking to make changes to our health and wellness, there's so much information to sift through, and the information changes. What was good for us 10 years ago might be lethal today. Or, I still think about the commercials when, the doctors would be on TV smoking their Lucky Strikes and saying, 9 out of 10 doctors think that this is great, So how do we begin that process of sifting through all that information?
Yeah, so that is all of our work, including mine. So spoiler alert, I'm not perfect either. I'm people would say I'm a masterpiece in progress, and I'm certainly a work in progress. What I would say is what is working for you. So as a nutritionist, many people see me as the food police. So they'll always justify, especially if we go out to eat, what they're going to eat. I'm eating this because what I say is what's working for you. So someone will say, what do you think about the keto diet? Or what do you think about this diet or that diet? And it goes back to those inputs that I mentioned. How is your digestive system? Do you have any illnesses? Just by taking medications as prescribed, there can be nutrient and micronutrient deficiencies. So that's something to consider. Do you move? Do you sleep? Are you hydrated? What is your current diet plan? Are you whole foods, plant? Is it, processed? There are so many questions. So where people can jump in is how are you feeling? And where do you want to make a shift? And I would say make it that seems the least restrictive, where you get the least pushback. So What do I mean by that? So if I want to start moving more, and I feel like that might be helpful, I'm not going to change my diet, figure out my sleep, listen to meditation tapes, and do movement. Because what ends up happening is it becomes overwhelming for many. And if we start on that one area, I would say a circle of all these inputs, where am I going to jump in the circle? Because once you do that and you start to feel better, it helps all of those other inputs. And then the changes become exponential. They become symmetrical. And so if I want to move more than, 10K may not be my first goal, which is human beings. I do it all the time. Like, I want to start moving. Let me do a triathlon. It could be if I am coming from sedentary, probably, maybe post-surgery. I've had that where someone's coming out of post-surgery. Okay, so can we walk to the mailbox and then back? and then wait, because it's the next day that your muscles may be barking at you. So you don't want to do too much. And if it's like, oh, that was a piece of cake, then yeah, then you extend it. For other people who are pretty active, yeah, you want to push that envelope. For others, it may be that movement isn't the place to start in there. It may be looking at the foods that you feel well in. I've literally had people say, well, I eat that food all the time. I just take a Zantac and I'm good.
I
And
know, isn't that,
yeah, yeah. So, and I just ask the question, and then it's really up to them to see, because if they're okay with it, I can point out how that could shift for them and how long-term that could create some other challenges. Ultimately, it's up to them. And one of the things as a practitioner that I practice often is to leave the judgment. So it's not up to me to decide. It's really to give the information and allow them to decide.
That's what I've learned in my many years on the planet is we cannot shame people into change.
Yeah.
And
overload them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
50,000 things is not helpful. Or, to give a list of, I was working with someone who had a list from someone they had worked with many years ago. And they had 15 things on the list to do. And everyone works differently. And this particular person felt overwhelmed. And so we just knew that going forward, where is that comfort zone? What is possible? What's going to bring success?
I love that idea of what is possible. And that's much more, I think, inspiring to want to move towards what's possible than if we start with that big list, most of it's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And I think you're living in my head, because for years, and I have to, every year I have to watch myself with this, because New Year's, I'm a big, not a resolution person, but I like the fresh start feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Also like the September fresh start feeling. Well, I'm going to start doing this again. I'm going to add this back in. And what I know for sure is that I will do that for maybe 3 days, and then I'll feel overwhelmed, and then I'll feel so much worse than if I hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
And so I think I finally got that lesson that it's not serving me to do one thing and do it well, but yeah, I used to go to the beach by myself on vacation every year for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I would have a list. And on my list would be things like walk on the beach. Now, why should I put that on a to-do list? Shouldn't that be something that I would just like want to do? And I would feel bad when I didn't do it. And so the first time I went without it, I was determined, and I ended up walking. I remember one day I walked 14 miles because I was just loving every minute of it. And I walked more that year than I probably walked every year put together, because I didn't have any shoulds on my list, So I so agree with, it's got to be what works for us and how our brain works and how because I like to play games with myself. I'm my best competitor. I'll play those. I'll let me walk further today than I did yesterday. That excites me. But that list where I could check it off, that was good girl stuff.
So there's two things that you said that I really love, Ginny. First, with the list, I'm a list person as well. And I don't know about you, the list would fill up, all the check marks were done, and I'd throw it away and I'd start a new list. And so I challenged myself that now when I create a new list, the completed list I put at the top, so that when I get to the second, I'm like, you know what, I accomplished all of these. So I'm not in a hurry now to do that. So I wanted to bring that up. The second that you said beautifully, the language that we say to ourselves is really critical. What I learned early on when I started doing my workshops was good, better, best. And, we changed the shoulds to coulds. It's not good or bad. Like, I'm really bad, I did this. It's, I made the choice with what information I had that day, or I was feeling so lousy, or, just one of those rainy days where I just had to have some ice cream. And that's what I did, and own it. Rather than feeling bad about it. So I love that you took the should out of it. And it sounds like the enjoyment was right there, which would then give you reinforcement to be able to want to do that again.
Yes. I think I've got this thing around freedom that's deeply embedded in me. And I can, that's why none of this stuff ever worked in the past, because I would see myself as infringing on my own freedom. Does that make crazy sense? Right? Like, you can't make me do that, Ginny.
Yes. Yes.
And I would get angry with myself. Well, I'm not going to do it, like a little bratty kid, And so I love that the way you work with people is you let them kind of work the way they work best. And then, you might if I were working with you, you might point out and say, well, who's in charge here,
Yeah,
Is it
and
you or is it the boy or
maybe,
the girl?
yeah, and well, and that, what is that, what is that little girl, or that girl who's, what is the message there? Because I think there is a message there. And it may be at both end, it may be, you had it on the list to make sure that you wanted to get some enjoyment, and then you got busy doing other things, and then you came back and go, wow, I didn't get to that. And then when you did it, you're like, see, when I do that, I feel better. So, and we do that all the time with ourselves. And it's, I say it's just the dance of life. And I like how you recognize that. And all of us do that. We all make adjustments.
That's a great point you made about, I didn't just be gentle with ourselves. Yeah, I didn't do that. And I may. And when I do go, yay, I did it. When I don't, I'll do it tomorrow if I want to. Kind of
exactly.
Thing.
Yes.
And I know where mine comes from. I was very stifled as a child and young and teenager, just rules and so this freedom, freedom to gain 150 or 200 pounds if I want, which is a bit warped, but I can laugh at myself about it now. So let's move on to this idea of aging. So should our health and wellness strategies shift and change as we age, and how might that look?
This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart as I age and as I have conversations. And what I've discovered, and the reason, and as I mentioned, nourishment has been an evolution. Working with women, I call them wise women. I used to call them 40 plus age and 50 plus age. And some people really didn't like that term and didn't resonate with it. And I thought, I like wise women. And so there's rites of passage that come with as we age. So whether we have children or not have children, whether we're married or single at that point, there's always these shifts over time and transitions in our lives. And I can speak, when I changed careers midlife, that's what a lot of people's concern was, here you are you going to be secure? And it's something to consider, right? And I'm surrounded by people now who are either retired or who are retiring, people like myself who have started another career. I just met with someone who's in their late 50s and they're going back to school and asking me how to do that. And so with aging, I like, just personally, and again, no judgment, I like having conversations more than wrinkle creams and, I guess the new crepey skin. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with having those conversations. I just want them to be more substantive, because there are women and men as well who are doing amazing things and shifting in amazing ways and exploring in amazing ways. And those are the conversations I want to be part of. Now, again, I'm wearing makeup and I do my hair. So I'm not saying, that inherently there's anything negative about that. I just don't want to spend all my time talking about that. And so with aging, what I find is that there can be more focus on our health, because as we get older, things can crop up, our knees might start to crack and sleep can sometimes get disrupted. We have hormones that shift and such. The diet that we had in our 20s, having pizza 5 times a week, maybe, at least that's me, who, as we get older, I'm not able to have that 5 times a week and feel well. I just start to feel really draggy. And that's when I know I need to go back and follow it. Hydration can be even more important. So yes, there's certainly some considerations. And yet for me, it's the most exciting time because many of us are open to those possibilities,
Many of us have the time, the money, the energy to actually pursue things.
Yes.
And I think what I heard you saying, and correct me if that's not it, when you talk about, all the enhancements, all the things that can help us to look better, like, again, nothing wrong with that, but don't let it define us. If whatever the problem is that's supposed to be fixing, don't let that define us. The crepey skin, the wrinkles, if I want to use something like that, not a big deal, but don't be obsessed by that problem that somebody has decided I have.
Yeah. And if that is the top of the brain, if I'm like, I need to get rid of this or get rid of that, for me, I like to explore what's going on with that. Is it that I'm not feeling comfortable about something, or is that just what I've identified that I feel comfortable worrying about at times?
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. I look in the mirror sometimes and go, wow, you look much different than the photographs you look like many years
That
ago.
wasn't here yesterday. Where'd that come from? Right?
Or, the beautiful gray hairs start to come in and you're like, oh, hello, newfound person in my head. And so I do like to laugh about it because in the scheme of things, I feel really privileged to be this age. Unfortunately, I've had people who have passed on before now. And so for me, it's that balance of being grateful for where I am, feeling good. And to your point, I think there's an interest in what does it look like now, at least the women that I'm working with, what does it look like now? And still many are in the corporate world working lots and lots and lots of hours who are extremely busy. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. She's a friend of mine and she's working very successful, national traveler. And I really admire her because she travels on her own. Like she'll just get up and, go abroad all by herself. And I think that's amazing. And she said to me, I'm just so busy, Carla. I'm not sure how this would work. I'm not sure what this would do. I know I need something. I'm just so busy. And I said, well, here's the way I see it, even for myself. When you learn about a fire drill, it's when things are quiet and you can kind of look around and make a plan. You don't learn a fire drill when you smell smoke. So you're already practiced when you smell the smoke because you know what you do and you don't sometimes have to think about it, right? Because it's part of the routine. That's the way sometimes I see health. When things are going really well, then sometimes that's a great time to do exploration so that when you start to not feel so well, it's easier to catch those things. Mm. One of the examples that I use often is seasonal affective disorder. People that in the winter tend to have some struggles. Mm-hmm. The time to explore ways that you can put in your toolbox to help that would be in the spring and the summer when you get to try out different things, especially hobbies. Like I want to try this hobby, try them out while things are going well. And when you're feeling well, when you're feeling energetic, I like this. Oh, I didn't know I like that. I don't really want to do that. And then when you get to the fall and the winter, then you have those in your toolkit without trying to figure it all out when you're in the middle of it.
That is excellent advice. I've never heard that metaphor for the fire drill, but it's so true.
Yeah.
So true. So you're saying we can kind of plan in a way. We can check things out. We can, but have fun with it even.
Yes.
Try something new, try something different, because when we're in the middle of what may feel like a crisis to us, we're not looking for solutions.
No.
We want somebody to fix it, but we're not in the mind space, I don't think, to actually go out and do it for ourselves or to have fun with it for sure. It'd be more of a I better do something. And
yeah.
That's really a great place to come from, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm going to remember that. I love that a lot. Thank you. So let's talk about this idea that even if you have a health challenge or you've been diagnosed with a disease, we can still create health and wellness goals and live a nourished life. So what are some baby steps that someone who finds themselves in that situation, like they've been told, maybe it's not a terminal illness, but they've been told they have to change something or do something different, or they're a bit concerned about it. What you said before is you don't jump in and do everything at one time or try to. So what are some baby steps that you talked about that a little bit, but I'd like to go just a little bit deeper with that.
Yeah. So there's a phrase, Claudette Gadsden and I were talking in a really amazing conversation and something that she said that still resonates with me. And that is what makes your heart sing. Mm. And so there are occasions where, let's say, for example, I'm unable to move as much as I did before. I have some sort of limitation with moving, and I'm a really extroverted person. I'm a really social person, and this inability to move and get around has really hampered me, and it would impact everything, right? Because I'm not able to get out and do the things that I would normally do, and then, we know that if I'm feeling bad, then my appetite might go down, and, there's a whole cascade of other things. So some of the conversations and some of the exploration, I would say, is what does make your heart sing? Mm-hmm. So I always give examples from my real world because I feel like they're so practical. And they've been such great teachers, even for myself. So in working with someone for that very thing, they actually broke their leg in several places to, where pins, and it was just really a debilitating break. And this was a very active person. And so we talked about, what do you love to do? And they love to read, and they just loved the arts. And so we had some discussions, and I didn't offer anything. This was the first time that I sat back and just kind of explored and kept probing. And what came about is in the rehab center where they were rehabbing, they would go room to room and ask if the person in that room would want this person to read to them. They were a beautiful reader. They loved to read. And so that became their like job while, the couple of weeks that they were in there. And it brought such joy that even after, I think this person is going to kind of incorporate something like that. And so that to me is nourishment, right? That is feeding their soul. It's feeding the soul of the person that they're reading to. And for me, that energy just expands. And that is just one example of what is it that I do that I really love? Or what is it that I would love to do that I've never attempted before? Like, I'm getting ready to learn how to paint. I can't wait to see how this turns out, because usually it doesn't, from what I vision it and what ends up happening, it doesn't, I haven't been born with the gift of artistry. And so I'll probably do abstracts, frankly. And it's something that I want to see if I find enjoyment with. And if I don't, then I won't continue. And if I do, then I found something new to add to my arsenal for things when I'm looking for that. So I would say, explore to be daring as much as you feel comfortable. And there isn't any failure. It's just learning. So if my picture looks like I think it might look like, then I don't have to show anybody, or I can show it and take pride in it and maybe decide that's not what I want to do, or that I want to do. It's all up to us, really.
Yeah, yeah. That's the really beautiful thing, especially later in life. It's we're talking about, everything we're talking about today can apply to anyone at any stage in their life. But I think that as we age, we have more freedom often, and more resources and that sort of thing. And I do love what happened to this person at the rehab center, because it sounds like that maybe they were able to look at that, whatever that leg breaking was, a bit of a gift in a way.
Isn't it something how and at first it was a very difficult conversation, because there was some pain involved, for sure. I mean, these are not just all things in our head. I mean, these are, it was pretty dramatic for this person. And there was some exploration, and there was the, why did this happen, and how am I going to get around this? And again, once they started making those baby steps of like eating well and getting more sleep, then you have more of the capacity to have those conversations about bigger and deeper things. So it's always, as I say, that circle, where in the circle, and that person felt like reading was a way to jump in that circle with everything else. And then everything else expanded. Their appetite improved, sleep improved. They started socializing on the unit. And then when they went home, there was more vigor about what could be possible, rather than, dreading going home.
Like more of what I can do versus what I'm not able to do right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful story. I love that. I think you should write a book. That was not a very gentle segue, was it? But you co-authored a book on nourishment, and you also have a book that's ready to be published soon. You want to say a little bit about both of those books?
Sure. So there's an amazing group of women in leadership, part of a mastermind group, and Pegeen got a bunch of authors together. She's amazingly talented. And so I wrote, my chapter was on nourishment, and it's what called us to that. So what called me to leadership, that change in career, and some of the reasons why that happened. And then what I might say to other people who are thinking about leadership or want to encourage women in leadership. So it's really exciting book, Called to Lead: Strategies for Successful Women. And then I've been working on this book title for many, many years. And even the title I had, Freshman at 50, because I've been in school for probably 150 years, it feels like now. And I'd always say, oh, that's my freshman at 50 moment, or that's a freshman at 50 conversation. And so that's the title of the book. And it's really about the journey of what my dreams were as a kid and some of the challenges and the obstacles in the way, like we talked about, and how I overcame those and kind of pushed through and what it looked like at the end. So I did manifest what I set out to do. It just looks very differently. And just sticking to it and being determined.
And I have read the book because I wrote a review for it, and there was something on the back. And it is such a beautiful story that I think would apply to anyone, could get value from, about sticking to what it is that you want, but also not being attached to how you get there.
Yeah.
Because there were so many twists and turns along the way for you.
Yeah.
But yet, when you go back to that original, what that little girl wanted, you ended up having some form of that. And I think, often we might, something's not working out for me, so that's just not for me. I'm going to go do something completely different, and not really take the time to trust our gut and to go in and to see how I might be able to do it differently and still have something that I want. So it's a lovely book, and it's coming out, I think you said, in September.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're so welcome. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more information?
Sure. So my website is drcarlajohnston.com. And so the books will be on there. The podcast is also on there, although the podcast is on all the platforms for podcasts. And that's probably, and then people, if they're interested in workshops, which I'll start uploading for the fall, and then private coaching sessions or nutrition, that can be scheduled there as well.
Okay. So lots of different ways that people could either stick their toe in and see what it's about. Yes. Or just decide, maybe after hearing you here today, I think I want to have a conversation with her about what feels good. So thank you, Carla. Is there anything that you'd like to wrap up with, like a final word of wisdom to those women, let's say women, who are just not sure what to do next, or if they want to do anything?
So one of the things that I'm going to say, when we did the Call to Lead book, one of the things Pegeen said is, I want you to come up with your own quote, which I went, my heart sank, like, I'm not sure I can do that, because there's so many quotes that I keep in my head that have really helped me. And I really thought about, what is it that I say to myself and what I say to other people? And that is, insert confidence here. So if I want to make a change and I'm just not sure, sometimes I'll say to myself, just insert confidence here and just push forward. And sometimes that little bit of nudge of myself really helps me to get over that one hurdle, to just keep going. And then that is it. Just explore what makes you happy, what makes you feel nourished, and how you're feeling in your body and what your goals are. And once you get in touch with that, and sometimes it's easier for us to do that in different times in our lives than others. So I like to say, there are so many resources out there for all of us. And if you need resources, I would say seek them. And then if you're surrounded by people where you can be a resource, then be that resource for them.
I love that. I'm saying that a lot with you today. I love that. It's brilliant. But that insert confidence here. So are you saying act as though, okay, if I felt confident, what would that look like? And I'm going to act that way right now. Or I'm just going to decide that I'm confident. Is it an acting, or is it a feeling, or is it a mind thing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I've always, behaved as if, and sometimes for me that felt bigger in the moment. So I'll give you just a brief example. So I wanted to do a podcast. And I'm like, how do I do this? And then I'm like, I did it. And, just like anything, the birds are singing and, violins are going, I'm going to do a podcast. And then you realize all of the IT work that has to be done to get a podcast up and running. So I'm like, oh boy, this is bigger than I thought. And I thought, I'm just not going to be able to do this. I'm not an IT person. I don't know how to set this up. I'm doing it by myself. And I got overwhelmed. And before I stopped, I thought, you know what? Just insert confidence here. I don't have to worry about setting the whole thing up. Just figure out how to do this bit, and then figure out how to do this bit, and then figure out how to do this bit. And then when you string them together, it becomes much easier. So even in my own, as I said, I'm a work in progress. It seems so big. And then when I made the decision, I was all excited and I got into it. I'm like, well, this is even bigger than I thought. And then I got overwhelmed with the details. So for me, insert competence here can be an action step, like just do one thing.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's, you know what, you've done other things that are challenging in the past. This is new. And anytime I get to something new, my heart stops and, I just tense up. Done that, been there, done that. Just keep going, insert confidence and move forward. If in the end it wasn't something that I felt comfortable doing, I get to say no.
Yeah, that's the beautiful part of that, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, but don't give up before you know. I think that's what
Yeah.
the exert confidence here phrase does. It helps you
Yes.
to stay in it until you're at least sure it's not for you.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end our conversation, Carla. So thank you so much for being with me today and sharing your expertise and your wisdom with our listeners. I got lots of good stuff for myself today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Great conversation. Really enjoyed it, Jenny.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and Global Community Facebook page. We do have 4 interviews next week. On Monday, Catherine Yarborough, who is the other host of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, interviews Elizabeth Pat Stinson about how your trauma stories don't have to define you. On Tuesday, I'm talking with the Reverend Dr. Nadine Rogers about minding your own business, creating a spiritual economy. I'm really excited about that topic. On Thursday, Catherine chats with flirting coach Shelly O'Connell, and she's going to be talking about, oh girl, get your flirt on. So Shelly teaches people how to flirt. And then on Friday, I'll be talking with Jackie Hunter about how retirement is letting her be her. And she's doing a lot of really cool things out there. And to see all of the scheduled interviews for July and August, you can go to the On Purpose Woman magazine, onpurposewomanmagazine.com, and you'll see a 4-page spread with all the dates and topics. And if you love this interview and you want to share it with your friends, it will be on our YouTube channel in the next 48 hours. So go over to On Purpose Woman Global Community. That's the name of the channel. Please subscribe and then sign up for notifications. And that way you'll always know when a new video goes up. And there are already more than 70 inspiring, informative, and fun shows for you to watch on our channel. So thank you again for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. And I'll see you another time. Bye, y'all.